This is part 2 of a 3-part podcast.
Hey, this is T. Blankenship. Are you a fan of pie? Where there's pie at Permies.com. This pie grants the user secret access. You also get free things like videos of Wheaton Labs, the ability to add 2 thumbs up to posts, and more. To get pie, go to Permies.com/pie to get the inside scoop of what pie can do for you. Again, that is Permies.com/pie.
Gonna move on to the next point, which is, you've been without power for the last few days, right? And I've been told it's cold.
Yeah, so for 2.5 days we had no power. So up on the lab, they have all kinds of power. It's all solar up there. But down here at base camp, we depend on the power company. And so, it's kind of funny because, so Stephen in the boots would take these battery packs that we have and load them up into the truck and go up to the lab and charge them with the solar systems up there and bring them down here for those of us, that are, on the grid and without power. So yeah, those big windstorms knocked out our power for 2.5 days. But we had, heaps of heat. Heat was not a problem. Although, it was looking like, cause we've been doing an experiment here where it's like, how long can we go into the winter for this building burning nothing but cardboard and garbagey, like papery garbages or woody bits that are garbages or whatever. And so I think we're about to run out of that. But because the windstorm caused so much other damage, then Stephen and the boots went out to do repairs. And I said, oh, don't worry about the garbagey stuff. I'll start burning cordwood if I need to. But we still haven't touched the cordwood. But the house, like, we kept it plenty warm. It was easily in the 70s while the power was out. And Stephen kept mentioning, like, there's probably some people around here that also have their power out, but they don't have a form of wood heat, or they do have a form of wood heat, but they burn a lot more wood than we do. So, I don't know.
Yeah, but, having your power go out. What's that? I'm sorry, Andreas.
I'm bringing this point exactly because of Samantha's previous being terrified of the future motivation. And is it that if you really think about it, the alternatives are very insecure. And if you have any notion of being prepared, I think that's something that is a really good motivator, is having the skills to not only survive, but being warm without gas or electricity. I think that's a really good motivation.
I think, I know that Samantha has asked a bunch of times about building a rocket mass heater at her house. Did you have Uncle Mud come out to your house?
No, he did. He talked with me for quite a while and kind of gave me the prices. I live in Washington. What's that? I'm sorry.
He's booked.
Well, he is. No, he would do. Well, he might be booked now. He was willing to do it then. He said there's a bunch of ways you can do it. One thing is, if you want, you can actually set up a workshop. So when he comes, and then sell tickets. And so when he comes out, it costs a lot less because everybody's paid a little bit to be there. And so you're teaching people in your area to do this for themselves. And he says he loves to teach. So he's happy to just come out and bring a friend and do it at your house. But if you want, you can sell tickets. And then you've got even more people in your area that get to have this skill, which I think is really neat.
Right. I do kind of think that, because I think because you don't have wood heat at your house right now.
I am dependent on the power company. But I have kind of a fun thing. I have an off-grid cabin that's just a few miles up the road. So if we lose power, I can actually just go to my other house and have all the amenities you could ever want. So I'm kind of cheating that way. But yeah, for most people, you just need a generator.
I was kind of thinking that one of the things that you could do is if you were to make a fire outside and then heat up rocks, you could bring those hot rocks inside. You could also heat up water and do like hot water bottles that you bring inside the house. So it wouldn't heat your house up enough, but it would heat it up, warm it a little bit. Plus, there's the whole concept of like heat the person instead of the whole house. So then if you have water bottles, then you could, each person has their little water bottle on them, and they'll probably feel quite warm, Now, of course, there's I'd say one problem you have is you don't want your pipes to freeze.
Yeah, that's a really big issue when you don't have power.
Yeah.
So I did kind of a silly thing a couple of years ago because we were out of power for quite a while, and the pipes were starting. We just have one little patch where the pipe is close to the wall. So I built a little pen, and I put my geese on the deck, and I put my sheep right up against the wall, and I just made them stand there, and they created heat. So, and they were fine. I mean, it was really stormy, so they were going to be in a barn anyway, but I just used the heat of the animals and insulated them, and they kept the pipes from freezing. So, and then we just have one room in the house that I keep warm because my dad's older, and I have a tortoise. And so, some people have more needs than other people. And so we just have one room that's warm, and it works out.
Okay. Yeah. So, yes, the power went out, but we rolled with it pretty good, I think. We were plenty warm. And we did have a big battery unit, which when we got into day 2, we took the battery unit around to the refrigerators and the chest freezers and gave them a drink, so they can keep doing their thing. Yeah, I don't remember what else we might have done for power. But the little batteries that we could go charge up at the lab with the solar systems, that was a pretty good little system that we came up with. I mean, I think that the longest we've ever been without power before was like maybe 10 hours. So this was a new record for us. But I mean, we do so much off-grid stuff that for us it was, I think, really easy compared to other people. I think. I could be wrong.
And if for some reason it extended for a month, would you guys be okay?
Stephen told me that he was kind of like thinking like, let's act as if it's going to be a month. And so, yeah, we were getting to what I was doing was I was avoiding using my computer, which is kind of like the core of everything that I do all day. I was trying to get stuff done with my phone, which is really slow. But we got to the point where I could run my computer for an hour or two at a time on one of those batteries. And I was thinking okay, I need to kind of shift some things around so my computer's not drinking because I had way too many windows open, and that consumes a lot of power on the laptop. And so we were moving in the direction of let's get used to doing it this way. So I don't know, maybe we would need to get our own. We do have a whole solar panel station on wheels that we didn't even fire up, but I imagine we could move it up next to the house and fire it up, and that would become our primary power outlet. We could have done that, but we were lazier than that, which I think is like the theme today is like how to, and I think part of it is how to find a flavor of lazy that's cool, but I also kind of feel like And I want to at some point talk about this. I'm not sure, you probably got it scheduled, but observations I've made of people who make a big leap and they want to do stuff and then they end up not doing stuff. And what happens then?
Yeah, I have this slide for it, so go on.
All right. Wow, cool. You made a slide for this. This is nice.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let's start with that one, that story. So when I was on Mount Spokane, I had a neighbor who owned 2 homesteads. One that he lived on and the other one that he sold at least 3 times. And that, I know that probably doesn't make sense, but it goes like this. First of all, for a lot of people, they want to be homesteaders. They want to do the homestead thing, and they're living in the city. So they do what most people do, which is to buy a homestead. But they don't have enough money to buy it outright, but they do have enough money to make a down payment and then get a mortgage. Banks generally will not touch homesteads. So it's very common for a homestead to be owner financed. And the general dealio is 1/3 down, and then there's an interest rate that's like a little higher than your best mortgage interest rate, like usually 1 or 2% higher than that. And that's the norm. And so most people living in the country on a homestead, this is what they're doing. They put their 1/3 down and they are now paying this mortgage. The thing is that means they have to keep on doing their worky job. And a lot of times it's a couple, so they both have to keep doing their worky job. It's not always that way. Maybe one does the worky job and the other one stays home to do homesteading, but okay. Usually, I would say, from what I've learned, both of the people continue with their worky job. And so now they've gone from having like a 15 or 20 minute commute each way to having this hour-long commute each way. So their commute is now much bigger. And then any homesteading that they do is limited to the evenings and weekends. But they kind of come preloaded with the problems that were in the city. And that is that at the end of the day, they're exhausted. And they don't want to cook food or harvest food from the garden. They just want to buy a meal. And all right, this guy sold this homestead, and I know it's at least 3 times. And so each time what happens is he sells it with owner financing. So they pay 1/3 down, and then they start paying a mortgage. And if they stop paying the mortgage, then he repossesses the homestead. And so it sounds like what was happening is that people would put the 1/3 down, pay the mortgage, and then at some point in time they would just walk away from the whole thing and go back to living in the city. So they just dropped the down payment and all the money that they put into it. And so well, why? And it's like they got sick of it. They didn't really do all the things that they thought that they were going to do. And they were angry with themselves and possibly ashamed of themselves. And they're like, you know what? Just fuck it. I want out. I just want to go back to what we were doing before. I can't. I thought I was all about homesteading, but I hate it. I'm out. So, I don't know. Let's suppose that today you think about how much a homestead might cost today. 1/3 down. That's a lot of money. And then they just walked away from it. So basically this guy ended up, he ended up with this big pile of money, and then he had the homestead again. And it sounds like some of them it was like months later, some of them it was 2 years later, but he ended up with all the money and the homestead, which he then turned around and sold again. So, I don't know, I've seen this quite a lot where people want to do homesteading and then in the end they decide it sucks. They want out. They want to not do this. And I don't know. I have talked to thousands of people about this, and I feel like, yeah. And what I want is if those people are going to do it, if they were, what I want is for them to come to a gardeners program. And it's like, because instead of laying out hundreds of thousands of dollars and losing hundreds of thousands of dollars, then instead they part with like what, $200, and then they come and do this with us, and now they don't have to do a worky job. They've got hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank. They can drop their worky jobs. They can come and do homesteading and permaculture 40 hours a week, which a lot of homesteaders that are doing the thing with the down payment and all, they're putting in 100-hour weeks to try to pull it all off. And it's like you come to the boot camp, it's 40 hours a week with zero commute. And so now you get all the experience you want. And it's like, you could come and be part of the boot camp for a week, a few weeks, a month, few months, or longer, years. And it's possible to become a full-time resident. In fact, if you've got hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank, maybe the thing that you want to do is to get your own acre. So like you do have to put 6 months into the boot camp, but then you can get your own acre. And it's currently priced at $25,000 for an acre here at my place. But I kind of feel like, eventually there'll be other gardeners programs that'll do this also. I like the idea that we've got some spaces that have some humble cabins on them already. So maybe that could be arranged. But that's a lot cheaper than laying out hundreds of thousands of dollars and then deciding it's not for you. And the other thing is that you're on your own when you get yourself a homestead and you think you'll have all the gumption. You basically sell yourself into slavery to your dreams. And it's like and then it's like, okay, so now you're a slave. You wake up in the morning and you're a slave to your dreams. Do you start at 5 a.m. or maybe 7 a.m.? Like, every day, do you start at 7 a.m. or is it 8 a.m.? Or do you start every day at 11 a.m.? And I've been to a lot of places where they don't get out of bed until 11 a.m. They start at 2 p.m. They quit at about 3:30 p.m. And then they party every night, and they take the weekends off, and they utter the words that they're putting 40 hours a week into this. But an hour and a half a day for 5 days a week does not add up to 40. But they are certain that they're putting 40 hours a week in, and why isn't there more stuff getting done? And then when they work that hour and a half a day, 5 days a week, they kind of, because it's like they're not feeling it. So this is where I think that Gardening Gardeners really gets you going, helps you to develop really good habits, and also sets you up with the understanding that you need in order to be able to do it in a way that will be easier, and it'll have more return on the effort and the dollars that you put in. The key is this guy sold that at least 3 times, and that's because the people who came, they didn't do what they thought they were going to do. They thought that they would do a certain thing, and in the end they didn't. And it's like, there's all kinds of different reasons why they didn't. And I'm sure everybody who's watching this or listening to this can think of a dozen different bits that would prevent normal, good person from doing the homesteading things that they wanted to go and do. All right, along these lines, 10 years ago, we did this ant village experiment here. We had, I think it was like $800 a year to rent an acre of raw land. And for the first year, the people that came, I think they suffered from this. So they've got their land, and they could build a humble home and a large garden and a fence around that garden. And for the first year, I think almost everybody that was up there, they either did very little or they did nothing. And it was a lot of enthusiasm, but then they also wanted to visit, and they would procrastinate and things like that. They did not have good habits, and their ideas of gardening and their ideas of building, they thought that they had gumption, only to learn that they did not. And it was during the Ant Village experiment that we came up with the idea, that Fred and I came up with the idea of the boot camp. And the people up at Ant Village were like, they had unkind things to say about the idea of the boot camp. And it's like, I would never do that. And it's like, no, I understand that you would never do that. And it's like, at the same time, I kind of feel like if they did do that, I think that if they put 6 months into the boot camp and then they went to Ant Village, I think that they would have been able to do a great job. Although I still think that if they were to do something where, and I tried to arrange for this, but I think if it's something where it's like, why don't you put some time into the boot camp, and then maybe like once a week, the boot camp will come and help you with your projects on your plot. I thought that was a great way to go about it, because it's like I think that for a lot of people, if they're exclusively on their own acre, I think for most people they won't get a lot done. On the other hand, if they do it collectively, they get a lot done. I mean, individually and collectively. So like I think a person who's part of a group doing stuff, that one person will do, I'm going to make up a number, will do 10 times more stuff than if they were just by themselves. I think I could be wrong about that, but that's based on my observations, and I'm old and I've seen a lot. So I don't know. I do think, Samantha is the exception to the rule. I mean, but she's wired in a way that's quite different. Plus, I think Samantha's done so much already that she's got habits, a lot of habits built up.
Well, one thing I would say is when I first bought my property, I did a lot of sitting around and laying around and wandering around. And I would be frustrated that I didn't get enough done that day and the day was over. But I just actually had there's a song, I think it might be a Beatles song, where it's roam around the grounds until you feel at home. And it would just kind of keep going on in my head. And I just kind of felt like I had to land a little bit. Like I had a really stressful job and a pretty, I was just barely done being a teenager. And so I kind of needed time to sort of land on my property and just lay on the dirt and go for walks in the forest and pick flowers. And after I did that, then I was ready to start, doing. And, luckily I got enough done before winter that I had a place to stay. But I totally understand the not doing, the having the ideas and having it run around your head and sit around and drink coffee and think about all the things we're going to do. Mrs. Robinson, yes, let me just put it in the chat. So I get that. And I think that what you're doing at the boot camp does really help people with that, because you do have, you have the weekend and you can kind of lounge around. And on Sunday we start early with the blitz. We don't start that early. We start at 9 and it's only for a couple hours. So you have your time off. You have all afternoon after 5. You're free to do whatever. But we do start at 8. And I think that that's important. I think that it's important for the group because everybody sees that everybody else had to also get up and get going. And it just kind of gets those habits because it's easier to get work done in the morning and you kind of want to chill out at night. So I think that structure that you're giving people is really valuable. I remember a few years ago you did a thing where I think it was like $800 and you could come out and do the Ant Village Challenge. And
oh yeah,
start in the spring and build a house by winter. I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. And then when I talked to you about it, you said nobody built a house.
Yeah.
Like, how is that possible? You have all year and it's a challenge. But if it's your first thing you've ever built, then yeah, that's hard. You got to build kind of a crappy shed, just like you build a crappy basket. And then you build a kind of better shed and stay in that way. You build something even cooler. But you need the experience. And when you guys do the boot camp, your people get that experience. I mean, they're going to build a junk pole fence because you need one for the garden, and you're going to build a drag around shed because you need it for something, and they learn how to use all the tools. And so in their off time, they can just run out there, use the tools, and start building. So
I have a thing I want to run by you, Samantha, and it goes like this, like the difference between a homestead and a farm. When you have animals on a homestead versus animals on a farm, when you have animals on a homestead, all of the animals have names. And when you have a farm, none of the animals, or most of the animals, do not have names. And so that is a way to try to define the difference between a homestead and a farm, which I think there's a lot. I think it's an important distinction.
Yeah. I mean, you need to, just in order to work with them, you need to be able to distinguish them. Like I don't really have anybody that I need to explain things to, but I still have, for myself, I still explain it to my family, and I still say, well, we're going to do this with this and that sheep, and this sheep got out. So and they all do have names mostly. But that's really a distinguishing factor, I think that a lot of people do the ear tag where they just put the number on the sheep and they refer to the animal by the number.
Yeah.
That's reasonable. I don't do that. But yeah, I think for me, just in my own mind, when I'm going through all the ewes, who's had a baby, you need some label for the animal. Maybe that's different when you have 10,000 animals. I would guess it's different, but I don't have that many animals, and I can't even imagine, I've thought about it in the beginning, how do you have enough animals that you can actually make money at it? And I'm not capable of having that many animals. You know?
I think that if you have a dozen chickens, every chicken has a name.
None of my chickens are named.
Oh, okay.
Some of them are distinguished, right? Like I shouldn't have a name, but there's a couple that are more troublesome than others, but otherwise they're just the chickens.
Okay. All right. I know we have a bunch of cats here, and they all have a name, and and I don't know. Do you remember Batman? We had a cat named Batman. And somehow the coloration on Batman's face, it looked like Batman was wearing a mask, and Batman's mouth stuck out of the mask. And so it looked like Batman's outfit, Batman's mask.
Yeah.
And Batman always looked broody and angry. And it's like, so I don't know, everybody called this cat Batman. It was pretty clear which cat you're talking about when you say Batman. And then one day, I'm in my office and I hear this teeny tiny mewing sound, and we don't have any kittens at the moment. And so it's like, that is bizarre. So I go outside and there's Batman looking at this little blob of spit that's mewing, and there's a slime trail between Batman and the blob of spit, and it's like, and Batman's like, the fuck just happened? I think that thing came out of me. What? Is this some sort of parasite? And so Batman's looking pissed off at the blob of spit, because Batman always looks pissed off. And it's like, oh, hey, Batman, I think you're a mom.
So cool.
And so I picked up the blob of spit and Batman and put them into one of the cat houses. And then Batman proceeded to put out 3 more kittens.
Awesome.
And Batman turned out to be a really great mom.
That's so cool. I love that the first time you hear a new voice, you know, it's like, wow, that's a new voice. I never heard that before.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Always fun. Okay. So, the Ant Village project. We still have Ant Village. People
and it's neat up there. I want to live there.
Still come and rent an acre by the year. And, I'm thinking that maybe we need to lower the price a bit or something like that. But at the same time, the cost of rent and buying property is pretty much doubled or tripled in the last few years. So maybe the prices are quite low as is. However, we do have a new requirement. You're not allowed to rent until you've spent 6 months in the boot camp. And this was Stephen's idea, and it took me a couple of weeks to come around to it, but I think it is a good idea. And but basically, if a person wants to rent an acre, and they've already put 6 months in the boot camp, now they know what they're doing, and on top of that, they've developed good habits. But I think it would be wiser to not rent, not do the Ant Village thing, and instead continue in the boot camp until you can be gifted, basically Allerton Abbey, a humble home with a large garden. How much is a year for rent? Currently, if I remember correctly, it's $1,600 a year right now, and there's a $1,500 deposit. And so, I don't know, I think that for annual rent, I think that that's pretty cheap. So, Casey, you asked the question, how much? Does that seem really cheap to you? With all your neighbors are permies, and on top of that, not only do you get your acre, but if you're going to graze animals or something, you're welcome to graze your animals over the entire 200 acres. So, I don't know. Does that seem pretty damn cheap? I'm looking at the chatty chat and I'm not seeing a response. So, Oh yeah,
Well,
typing a long thing.
Doing the boot camp first, I think, makes a ton of sense. Partly as an Ant Village, I mean, you're letting people use your tools and use your shop. And I believe they can even pay money to use your excavator sometimes.
Well,
maybe
right.
not.
We've come up with a system where if people help out with certain things, then they can, have the shop or the excavator or something like that. So Casey says, that's cheap. Yeah, I think it's really, really cheap.
Also, that year that if you're going to spend that money for a year and you've spent 6 months in the boot camp, you're going to be far more productive over that year than if you just start from living in the city and then just give it a try on your own. You're going to do a lot more and get a lot more done, and your time will be worth more because you've invested the time in the beginning.
Hey, this is T. Blankenship. Have you seen the new video of Wheaton Labs? It is permaculture awesomeness with all new and improved things like more rocket mass heaters, easy bake coffin, Willy Wonka, rocket cooktop 2.0, and the truly passive greenhouse. To see more, go to permies.com/tour. Again, that is permies.com/tour.
So, yeah, and I think Deep Roots is 25,000, yeah. And it's kind of there's also with the Deep Roots, it's like if you were to leave after 3 years, I think most of that gets returned to you. You guys keep going. I need a quick bow break, but I'll be right back.
This is
when I get back, you'll let me know what we're talking about next.
This is so fun, Andreas. Thanks for doing this.
Awesome. Thanks for being here.
When I saw you were going to do this, I was like, I want to be part of that one because I love it.
Awesome. Well, I think we can talk a little bit about, because I have no frame of reference besides television.
Yeah.
How is family in the U.S.?
How is what? Family?
Like how does a family and individualism works in the USA? Because that's a point that Paul wants to bring up.
One thing that just happened for me over the past couple of years is I realized I had grown my own help. So my kid, when he started to be, 11, 12, 13, he's so helpful. He can carry a pallet. He can buck hay. He can grab the other end of a board and we can walk around with it. I mean, he's a man, right? So he can do stuff. And for so long with a little kid, you're investing in them, right? Like, okay, we're going to carry this bucket of water 20 feet to the sheep. Well, most of it's going to get spilled. It'll take about 20 times longer than it would take if you just did it yourself, but you invest in your kid and they love it. And then eventually, I can just tell him now, can you go do chores? And he just goes. He knows everything. And he doesn't have to do it all the time, but if I'm busy, he can just run out there, and if something goes on, he can run out and take care of it. So to me, that's really, really cool. Just to have, because it's my responsibility, but they're kind of his animals too, And then when he really wanted, he loves rabbits. And so he really wanted to get into rabbits. And so we did it. We got into rabbits because it was what he wanted. He wanted to kind of take responsibility for a thing. So I think that's really neat that if you have kids, and I'm sure some kids are less into playing outdoors than other kids, but there's tons of indoor fun things for homesteading kids to do, and the garden, and there's so much fun stuff when you have kids around. I think kids just make life more fun. Nobody's going to stay till noon if they have kids, right? It's like nobody's going to let you stay in bed. Somebody in your house is so excited for life that you're going to have to get up and be excited too. So I think that's really neat.
Gotcha. But I do think that there's an expectation, at least culturally, that when you at your 18th birthday, you're out of the house and you're independent, right? That's something common over there.
Our job as a parent to raise a child who is ready to be completely independent before 18, I think, because, then you got your training wheels for a little while you're still home. I think that that's our responsibility as a parent. I think it's also maybe our dream that our kids stay, right? But you got to be aware that you only get those, 18 years if you're lucky. And by then it's like mommy's not going to be that cool anymore, and friends and the world is going to be so much more interesting. And so you might only get these first, 18 years before they're on their own. So you got to make the most of it. But yeah, I mean, I certainly have the dream that he sticks around, but that's his thing. You don't know what he's going to want to do when he gets that old.
I think where Andreas is going with this is about how it's different in most countries other than the United States.
Yeah? How is it? How is it in Colombia?
Well, in Colombia, families stay together. Usually there's it differs from family to family, but family businesses are a thing. Like, those things are inherited and people work together. Maybe because of survival need. Mm-hmm. Because people don't, for example, getting a loan to go to get higher education is not as easy. It's not as easy here. So they stay united pretty much for the rest of their lives. Mm-hmm. And for example, if there's a house, and I see this very commonly even in the cities, they start stacking apartments on top of each other. Right. So the building ends up being a collection of sons and daughters, and then the grandparents at the first floor. But yes, it's a very warm setup, and everybody tries to collaborate. Of course, it doesn't happen everywhere, but it's culturally that's what happens. Yeah, that's really cool. How family works here.
Well, where I live, a lot of people are that way. They have many generations living together, and you get to see a thing which I didn't really grow up with. You get to see generational wealth. You see the farm being passed down, and it would not be possible for a young couple to buy thousands and thousands of acres and run cows or farm or do things at that scale. But because it's been in their family for many generations, it is possible. And people can, some folks decide to move to the city, but a lot of folks go and find a partner and then come home. And, and for the grandparents, that's really wonderful because they know that the farm stays in the family and that their kids are growing up and they will be able to pass that on. But the generational wealth to me is so powerful because I know a lot of people don't have that. And just the owning of property, your family owning property is a powerful, powerful thing. And so I think it's really neat that you guys do that in Colombia too.
Yes.
I think here in the United States, there's a lot of pressure to be an individual. I think that there is a lot of people getting to be 16, maybe 15 or 16 years old, and they have come to the absolute conclusion that all adults are dumb fucks. And only themselves are brilliant and all-knowing. And this is like, not only is it common, but we've gotten used to it and kind of expect it. Then comes the whole thing of like, kids saying, I can't wait until I'm 18 and done with high school. I can blow this popsicle stand. And so they've got this ferocious individualism that's worked into them. So there is an expectation that they will live away from their family on their own. And this individualism is going to be activated. This is, I believe, the norm. I mean, there are exceptions. There are people who turn 18 and they stay with their folks. Because why not? They get along with their folks. It's free food, free internet, why not stay home and yeah, start your life and do this and that and the other thing. Or it could be a farm situation and, they're going to continue to help out on the farm or whatever. But here in the United States, and let the people in the chatty chat let me know if I'm saying the right thing or the wrong thing or whatever. But I think that the norm is that most people will leave home. And in fact, I think that, for a lot of people, the mindset is that if you're living with your folks post high school, nobody will want to date you. Like, that whole thing is like, it's not cool. It's not smooth. That's not all right. And so the only way that, so basically if you're still living with your folks, you're a loser. And so I think for a lot of people, this is a powerful incentive to go and do their, and then at the same time, I think for a lot of people, your kids come out different from each other, but also different from mom and dad.
Yeah.
And that's, it's, the way that this fierce individualism is fostered in the United States, there's a lot of this mentality of like, I command you to be obedient to me. So there's parental units pointing down to their children, I command you. And then there's children pointing up at the parents. I command you. You have to vote this way. How can you support that kind of dumb fuckery? And this is going between everybody inside this family.
Yeah, I can see how you'd want to get out of that. But I think that some families, people want to escape, and other families, it worked out for whatever reason, and they want to be together.
Yes. There's a lot of families where they want to stay together, and they are kind. Or more kind than hostile, at least.
Yeah, it probably comes and goes.
The hostility is encouraged. In fact, I think most people in the United States are taught that hostility is rewarded. The more hostile you can be, the greater the rewards. And so and then so many people are accepting of people that are hostile. Oh, that's just the way that they are. They're just like that. And so that person's going to get more candy than this person that's kind. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I observe this. I see this. Hopefully I'm not the only one that observes this. There's hostility all around. And so then our family units, especially with teenagers, gets to be a buffet of hostilities. There's been some comedians that kind of cover this. I remember one guy, he was talking about he was growing up in Canada, and he is of Indian descent, like from India. Uh-huh. And he was talking about how his family worked and how he goes to visit a friend, a white family, and how this friend was so cruel to his mother. And the kid, this white kid was kind of like, oh yeah, watch this and blah, blah, blah. And then the comedian kid, the kid that's now telling the story of when he was a kid, he talks about going home and telling his dad something. And it's like, you can't, the dad threatened to beat him. And the comedian kid says, if you lay a finger on me, I'm going to call the Department of Family Services. And the dad hands him the phone and he says, you go ahead and call him, but it's going to be 8 minutes until they get here. That was the joke. So apparently the dad, so the kid didn't call the Department of Family Services because he didn't want whatever his dad was threatening. And it sounds like part of the comedian's thing was like the dad's shtick was all talk. I don't think there was anybody actually got beat ever. It was just, but it was, I don't know, that was kind of fun. The thing is that the difference in cultures, the hostility, the flippancy, the whatever, it's like normal. I think it's more normalized in most American households, which leads to, and so now it's kind of like, okay, gardeners. Like, let's say, somebody is like, I'm leaving home because my parents vote the wrong way and eat the wrong foods, and I want to go someplace where it's permaculture and gardening and homesteading all the time. And it's like, so they could turn to a list of thousands of gardeners programs and pick the one that is a fit for their stuff. And that would work for all of this. But it would have to be a collective thing, and hostility would be not cool. Like, because that hostility is poison to a community. So what I hear is that the families in Colombia have near zero hostility. I mean, there's going to be arguments. There's going to be discussions. There's going to be a difference of opinion about a lot of things, and people are going to be different. But compared to an American family, it'll be far more respectful.
We're passionate, because we're in the tropics. And to be fair, we've had an internal conflict for 70 years. So it's not that fun, but internal families do tend to work like that. And I want to bring back that point. It's also because of necessity, I think. And I learned this too, last year we had a massive fire here. And it was like a very to-the-face conclusion that we cannot be an oasis. Like, if community-wise we're not working, we're all doomed. And in the US, what I see is like this, it's almost like a trap, because every kid has to start from scratch into the world. Yeah. And in our homesteads, like, building infrastructure is very expensive. And I think that might be one of the things that sets back most people, and is the miscalculation of how expensive it is to even do fencing. Something as simple as that. Like, if you have a big patch of land and you need to have kilometers of fencing, will take a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort, and then that's it. You bought a plot of land and you spent 2 years fixing the fence, and then you ran out of money. But if you are doing it in a community setting, then you share resources, you share the time into fixing the fence, or maybe even here, for example, there are plots of land that 300 years ago built stone fences. So their great-grandparents did solve the fences for them a long time ago. So that kind of community setup, I think, is the only way that can make homesteading feasible in the future, and living in general, because I've also seen some statistics that a lot of young Americans are going back to live with their parents. Like, paying rent is not something they can even do. It's like, okay, I go live in a car, or I go back to mom and dad. So I don't think this model is sustainable, and I think that out of necessity, we will be forced to be kinder to each other.
Well, and I like the idea that, I mean, I recently read this book. I don't know if I've shared this with anybody in podcast world, called Sun House. Oh, man, it was, I did an audiobook, and it went on for months for me. It was like 50 hours or something like that. It was like 5 times longer than your normal audiobook. It was huge. But they pointed out, towards the end of the book, all of these people were coming together to form an intentional community. But the author basically said intentional communities have been proven to not work. So they referred to what they were doing as something like a menagerie. And so, which I thought that was an interesting choice of poetry there. And of course it's fiction and it worked, but it was fiction. However, I like the idea that these people that have left their home, and it's like they've got, like you said, they've got no choice but to live in their car or to go home to mom and dad. And I kind of feel like, well, there's the boot camp. And it's like, I like the idea if we could do gardening gardeners, and there can be thousands of them, then those people could seek out one of these to go to be part of it. And then it's like, I hope that all of the gardening gardeners programs will offer something like what we do to say, if you've put in 4 years in a leadership role, then you get a humble home and a large garden of your own. And you don't have to be in the gardening gardeners program anymore. It's yours. You're part of our long-term community now. I like that for them. But at the same time, yeah, I think that, and I also kind of think that if we have thousands of gardening gardeners programs across the United States that people can go to and be part of, I kind of feel like you got to leave the hostility out. And we accept that outside of our gardening gardeners program, hostility has giant rewards. And that's the smart play, to be hostile. And it's like, but inside the gardening gardeners program, it doesn't work. And if you choose to exercise that, you'll be done here. And so you'll need to move on. And maybe you better be kinder to mom and dad then. or, make the interior of your car really comfortable. Because you're going to be there a while.
Yeah.
I think you do a lot of great stuff at your place, making it so people don't have disagreements. I mean, it's sort of like you're chunking up past the little whatever problems people might have, because you guys are focusing on bigger things. You're focusing on like, let's learn permaculture and what are we going to build today? And we're going to want to eat this winter. And the little petty problems folks might have amongst each other in the city really don't matter, right? I mean, unless we're like running for office, we don't have to run our mouth too much about politics. It's like you get to practice your religion in the privacy of your own world. So we don't need to like have problems. We don't need to convince each other. We can just enjoy the other sides of people, right? Like, because there's a lot more to somebody than what they believe, their religion, politics stuff, or their whatever other thing that people might disagree. There's so much more that we agree on, and we can move together to do a thing and create a thing. And I feel like at your place, that other stuff just kind of just left. It's not important.
I like to see it when people, like after they've been here a week, and it's like they did 40 different, well, maybe not 40, maybe 20, 15 or 20 different things over the first week. And I think that there's a lot of people where they have a powerful sense of having built something, built a good thing. And granted, most of the people that are here have had a worky job, but then a lot of times your worky job isn't like you're going to go out and build a dozen different things. It's going to be like you do one thing and you do it over and over and over again. And that's it. So I don't know. There's been a lot of people here where I kind of get the sensation that they have a powerful sense of satisfaction from what they're doing. Not only because they're now eating the food that they grew, or that they're sleeping in the bunk that they built, or things like that, but just a sense of accomplish, of do, of create, and above that, as a group with others.
Yeah.
I mean, when you do a worky job, there's others there too. But I think, again, there's kind of at a worky job, it's more, there can be competition. There can be office politics. And there can be the hostility complete with the rewards that hostility brings. And I kind of feel like this is not that. This is different. And I don't know. I feel like the people that are here get a positive sense of accomplishment.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I also feel like, and that's kind of where this whole thing that we're talking about today started, where people are like, homesteading and gardening is for me, and then they make the leap and then they walk away from it.
Because it's hard.
And it's like gumption or whatever, and it's like, what happened to the gumption?
Yeah.
And it's like, I think, and so when we talked about doing this thing today, it seems like most of the people that were saying things, they were kind of like giving tips on how they get their own gumption or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And I kind of felt like, that's not where I want to go with all of this, or at least that's when Andreas proposed that we do this today. I kind of got the impression that that's not what Andreas had in mind. What Andreas had in mind is how do you get into a situation that's soul building and where you want to get up in the morning and do this stuff, as opposed to what most people do, which is sleep in a lot and procrastinate away from the things that they're there to do.
Yeah. I think you got to have a powerful why. Like you hold your goals out in front of you. And
I think that the people that buy a homestead,
mm-hmm.
think that they have a powerful why. They've
mm-hmm.
got all the reasons, like they feel it in their bones. This is what I want to do with the rest of my life, is I want to do homesteading.
Mm-hmm.
But then once they get there, it's all rather overwhelming, and they end up doing zero or near zero.
There is something that happens for me when I'm on my own place versus when I'm at your place. It's like if I stand out on my own property and I look around, nothing is going to happen unless I do it. Like every single thing I see out there is going to stay right where it is unless I go and do the thing. And at your place, things happen all the time. People come and do things I don't even know are happening. Somebody's done a thing, filled the wood box, or, the truck is gone, and then the truck comes back and it's full of stuff, and it's so much goes on that, every time I come out to your place, more stuff has been done. And there was a time, it was quite a few years since I had visited you, and you'd built a classroom and a couch balcony and, all these things, but in all these gardens. It's like, I know that you personally spend a lot of your time at your desk, which means these things that are happening while you're funding them and you're driving them and you're imagining them, they are being done by other people's hands to some degree, maybe to a large degree. And to me, that was really powerful to see like what I had gotten done on my own farm in that same amount of time, which is still getting things done, but it's nothing like what you were able to accomplish because you created community. And I know there's challenges. I know it's hard sometimes, but the level of accomplishment is magnificent compared to level of accomplishment on one's own. So I know there's trade-offs, but like that's powerful to be able to see that.
Along those lines, I know that earlier there was a slide up there talking about how we went without power for 2.5 days.
Uh-huh.
And there it is. And Stephen said something that I thought was really terrific. And I hadn't thought of it at all until he said something. He said, you know what I like about this is that when the power went out and it had been like a long, like a day or whatever, nobody here panicked. And nobody turned into a drama queen. And we've had some things happen here in the past where there was somebody who's like, we're all fucked now. This whole project is destroyed. Everybody run for it. And they were like, we have to leave. And we did. We had one event where I think that the well here at base camp died. And I think 2 people left because it was just too overwhelming. And they were kind of saying, we all have to go now. We all have to leave. This project has ended. You can't survive without water. And my response was, okay, first I need you to switch to decaf. Okay. It's like, if you take just 10 seconds to think about it, it's not like the people who showed up here, like there was a well here, like, that's been here for 1,000 years. No, if all else fails, we could drill another well. And it's like, so it's not like it ends everything instantly. And it's like, and then we ended up calling a guy who fixed the well. And it was like, I don't know, 4 days later, we're back online. Ta-da! But in the meantime, 2 people got so freaked out that they left. And it's like, you get to freak out. That's like, but what Stephen was saying was, nobody turned into a drama queen. Nobody freaked out. Everybody was like, oh yeah, well, this will be easy. And it was. And in fact, I think it was probably easier for us than most places. I mean, other places that have only wood heat or during the power outage had only wood heat, they had to haul in 10 times more wood. We didn't haul in any wood at all. I felt like there were higher priorities while the power was out to deal with. I just used the cardboard and the garbagey bits that were already inside the house. And, but that's the funny thing is like, whereas somebody else needs to pack in, 200 pounds of wood to get you through a day, we pack in maybe 30 pounds of wood and that'll be good for the next 4 days. And
yeah,
so
that makes a huge difference.
It is weird how we've got a gal staying in the red cabin right now, and she's got a lot of experience running wood stoves. And she's like, this is amazing. The amount of work. So, and then we've got that new cob hat in the red cabin, and she's, talking about how it's still so warm in the morning, which people with wood stoves is like not super warm in the morning.
Yeah.
But we've been experiencing like, for the red cabin with the new cob hat, like a 2-degree drop overnight is pretty common.
So cool.
Not an 18-degree drop or a 30-degree drop.
Oh, yeah.
So, all right.
This podcast is continued in part 3.
Put Paul's brain on your plot. Do you have a hunk of land but don't know where to start? Do you have a world-changing permaculture idea and you need some feedback? Do you feel like the guy in overalls may inexplicably hold the keys to all your wildest permaculture and homesteading dreams? Well, you're probably wrong. But if you want to give it a go anyway, you can hire Paul for a consultation. He will be all yours for a whole entire hour. Schedule your Paulversation today at permies.com/consult. permies.com/consult.